Hello and welcome to the Deep NBA podcast. My name's Sean and joining me as always is the one and only Dante Boffman. Boffman, man, how are we?
I'm good, Sean. I'm good, but I'm in a bit of like an energy dip simultaneously from the week of work, but also from the highs of the first few days of free agency, which we covered on episode 157 of the Deep NBA podcast. And now we're in like a 4 or 5 day run where nothing has happened. So I'm feeling a bit anticlimactic, but luckily I've got this red tin of coconut sugar here to perk me up.
Yeah, I actually said it on the pod. I said, like, you know, Dante, let's talk about all this stuff and obviously talk about things that have happened, but there's going to be a moment where, you know, this will probably be relevant for about a day, but, you know, we're completely wrong. Like, the episode we recorded last week, which you can still check out, is 100% still relevant, and we're talking about the stuff that people are still talking about. Like, what's happened since then? Gorgie Zheng signed with the Spurs.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that.
Signed with Vet Min.
Yeah, nothing else. We were expecting a Durant trade in like the 2 to 3 day kind of timeline, and then yesterday reports started coming out that the Nets are telling everyone that they'll just hold on to him into training camp if they don't like the offers, which, as a podcast that generally feeds on the news cycle, bad for us. Very bad for us.
Well, pretty good. There is quite a lot of news coming out. We're not empty of Kevin Durant news. In fact, we've got a segment.
Also, like, more specifically for me as a Suns fan, bad news, because I just want that to happen.
Well, you've had some good news where it's like, yeah, bringing back Bismack Biyombo, signing Damian Lee.
Is that good news?
Yeah, because you haven't committed any money. You've just tried to trade Jay Crowder, sign minimums.
Yeah, Bismack Biyombo with Chris Paul will have like a PER of like 35. He'll be the best center in the league, and then without Chris Paul, it'll be like, oh, that's why Bismack Biyombo is out of the league.
Yeah, I love that though. That's so good.
Yeah, well, you know who's to thank for that? That's your mate.
My mate, Devin Booker.
No,
2K23 cover athlete.
CP Nonce. The other cool thing, just on a little Suns tangent, is that Jock Landale now plays for the Suns. And I didn't watch a single Spurs game last season, so I haven't seen him work in the NBA, but going to be amazing to root for an Australian. Especially an Australian who doesn't seem like a complete fucking idiot, because there are a few of those in the world at the moment. Think about this though, seriously. Ben Simmons, obviously an idiot. Kyrie Irving, born in Melbourne, don't know if you knew that.
Did he play for Australia in the Olympics? No, he didn't.
He didn't. Matisse, anti-vaxxer. Nick Kyrgios assaulted his ex-girlfriend. Not
famous basketball player Nick Kyrgios.
No, but Australian, mate, it's the off-season. Yeah. Australian in the spotlight, not going very well. Jock Landale, a lot resting on your shoulders. Let me be the Australian I want to see in the world.
Jock Landale, it's like you're a 5 out of 10, but you've just got no outlying opinions. No, but also Paddy Mills, arguably like the best person in the world. Joe Ingles, great guy. You know, could win a championship this year. Also, Paddy Mills just like cashed out again, like get the bag. There are good things.
Yeah, but I'm never been exactly rooting for Ingles or Mills in the league.
More the Olympics.
Jack
White, power forward / small forward who debuted for the Boomers in our qualifying games, is playing on the Denver Nuggets Summer League roster.
Well, on that point, there's 3 NBL players who are on the Suns Summer League roster.
Yeah, also, there's a lot of NBL players all over the
Surely you get a Luke Travers Cavs jersey.
Why?
Well, because he's Australian and he's got a mullet and he's in the NBA.
He's in the NBA Summer League.
He got drafted. I think he was pick 56.
True.
From the Perth Wildcats.
Yeah, he was working out for Indiana. I remember seeing him working out.
6'8" guard.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was supposedly genuinely very good for the Wildcats.
Yeah, right.
Obviously, you had to be to get drafted. So, anyway, could be your next novelty jersey purchase.
Nah, I'm trying to hold back on them. As you know, I've bought in quite a few novelty jerseys. Yeah, okay, no, I just misspoke. I'm not even going to try to cover that. But I've bought a few novelty jerseys, and Man, I reckon they've been worn probably twice. Once was with you when we played basketball, and I was wearing my Manuel Mudiay. And then the other was just...
Was that at Collingwood?
Yeah.
Collingwood Open Run?
Yeah.
Where the stars descend on the local YMCA.
But only once every couple of months when the chat's popping. But should we talk about... no good segues there. Kevin Durant. We mentioned at the top of the podcast that he has requested a trade, and while a trade hasn't happened, there's been a few little tidbits seeping through in the basketball commentariat. I'll start off with something that I think's the biggest discussion point, is that the Toronto Raptors, who were referred to as what was a lurker or like a dark lurker or some weird way to say that they're a dark horse, that the Toronto Raptors are unwilling to include Scotty Barnes in any trade for Kevin Durant, coming from Jake Fisher of Bleacher Report. I assume this means Scotty Barnes plus Pascal Siakam, but also Scotty Barnes plus salary filler, whatever shape that may take. What are your thoughts here when you hear that Scotty Barnes isn't going to be included?
I think two things. First of all, I think that's fair enough, because obviously he won Rookie of the Year, he looked unreal. If you're the Raptors and you think that he has a chance to be really, really, really good, and you get to keep him for the next, say...
8 years.
Yeah, 8 years minimum. Then trading for Durant, who has 4 years left, but will probably only... Let's say he's got 2 good years left, like 2 elite years left. Then the math doesn't really add up, so fair enough. And I think the second thing is that they still definitely have enough ammunition outside of Scotty Barnes to get this done if they decide they want to, because every single one of their starting 5 has like pretty decent amount of trade value, because you've got an All-NBA All-Star wing in Siakam, who a year ago his trade value was way down, but he just turned in a really good season, particularly the second half of the season. Anunoby with his perpetually higher trade value. Fred VanVleet was a first-time All-Star, and Gary Trent Jr. is like the archetypal 3-and-D wing on a reasonable contract. So if you don't want to include Barnes, you've still got 4 players who you can get to Durant's salary number, throw in a few picks, and Siakam is probably the best All-Star player who's available, like potentially down to Siakam or Brandon Ingram, whoever you prefer. But
If Jaylen Brown's involved, I think Jaylen Brown definitely is the best player.
I don't think that the Celtics will do that, particularly not after the Brogdon trade. I think they're just going for like incredible depth, and they're not going to consolidate.
I get that, but I think a deal can be done where it is simply just Brown for KD plus maybe some picks. Heading out from the Celtics, but like Jaylen Brown has 1 year remaining on his deal. He's probably not going to sign an extension because he's eligible for the supermax if he makes an All-NBA team next season, which he arguably should have made an All-NBA team over Pascal Siakam this year. So like if he doesn't sign an extension, all of a sudden he's an expiring deal. Heading into free agency next year, where he could just leave if he doesn't like what he sees. I think the Celtics should be a little bit louder in this discussion, where maybe they could even ask for something a little bit back in return, because this could be, at a worst case scenario, Jaylen Brown just walks, which we have no indication of that happening. But at a best case scenario, you make the trade, you're title favourites tomorrow if you make this trade.
But aren't they already like among the 2 or 3 favourites for the title right now?
Yeah.
Like, would you...
That's the counter argument, which is very good.
Yeah, like they just made the finals, and they added Brogdon, who just gives them like another steady option offensively, who is a pretty good fit for them offensively, and defensively just gives them like another bigger body who can defend 1 through 3.
Yeah.
I don't really see any reason to rock the boat. You don't do something absolutely seismic when you're that
there.
close. You're on the precipice. Like,
adding
KD on paper would make them better, but like, who knows with the young guys on this team, like particularly the Jays, but also some of the other guys that are kind of clumped together. Like getting rid of a 25-year-old guy who's like been there for his whole NBA career and is like good with everybody on the list, on the roster. So you can add a 33 soon to be 34-year-old like megastar. Like the chemistry issues there are potentially multiple. And I don't think that it's worth the risk.
Don't shoot the devil who's advocating. I completely agree with everything you said. But going back to the Scotty Barnes thing, if Scotty Barnes is in any deal, I say the Nets just jump on that immediately. Because even if you get 4 first-round picks from Phoenix or four first-round picks from Miami and, you know, Tyler Hero or Mikal Bridges, like, I don't think any of those single assets are as good as maybe even Pascal Siakam, but definitely nowhere as good as the next 7 years of Scotty Barnes. So, I think that's completely fair enough for the Raptors. Maybe Scotty Barnes is actually like a sneaky, incredible trade asset right now. You know how Bill Simmons always does his trade, or he used to do his trade value his trade value articles, and it was always like, you know, a rookie year, Anthony Davis is at the top of there, or LeBron James. Scotty Barnes might be like right at the top of trade value at the moment.
Yeah, well, he definitely would be right up there, but he's also still kind of like a bit of an enigmatic player in that there are... Like, yes, he won Rookie of the Year and got the recognition for that over Mobley, but it was very close. And there's like a not insignificant section of the NBA media that seem to think that Scotty Barnes actually still isn't going to end up being that good.
They must be listening to different guys. I think it's more just the open-endedness of it and the question mark.
Yeah.
Which makes it exciting.
What's the best non-Barnes trade offer that's like not an overpay for Toronto? Like, you would assume that you would say take your pick of Siakam or Anunoby.
No, I think it has to have Siakam in it. Just because if you want to outbid people, he's going to be the best player coming back. I would say you try and keep OG Anunoby and throw in Gary Trent.
So Siakam, Trent, that gets you to Durant's number.
And then they've got all their future picks, I believe. They just gave one out to get Thaddeus Young, which is still puzzling even after re-signing him. But so they've got all their future drafts.
Siakam, Trent, and 2 unprotected firsts with 2 swaps.
Malachi Flynn as well, if you love him.
Yeah, but you probably don't.
I reckon. Look, if you're Brooklyn, you probably love anything that's young.
Toronto doesn't want to send out guards; they want to send out centers.
But they also want to win the trade. But do you reckon that team without Siakam and Gary Trent, do you reckon that team wins an NBA championship, or is it at least a top 3 in your eyes?
No, because like Siakam last season was their best player. There's a case to be made that won't be the case within 2 years because Anunoby or Barnes will surpass him. But like a big 3 of Barnes who's not yet optimized and Durant and Van Vliet, I don't think that's better than like the Bucks or like what the Celtics have. Like, I think that would be a lock for a top 4 spot. But then you're kind of having the conversation we had the other day about Minnesota, where it's like, that's the move, and
I think this team would have a higher ceiling than a Rudy Gobert Wolves team.
I think they'd be a lock for the second round.
Okay,
but I could see them making the conference finals, but I wouldn't be. I probably would have them like at least third.
Behind the Bucks and the Celtics. I also just think that like there's so much to just being in the conversation, and like we saw with that one title that they won with Kawhi Leonard, like obviously they got past Philly in that incredible like 3-bounce game winner in Game 7 against Philly.
Insane.
Still an incredible shot.
Insane.
Just straight up beat Milwaukee and you know, maybe they're not the better team, but they were the better team for those.
Well, they won 4 in a row.
Seven games, right?
They were the better team.
And then obviously everything that happened with Kevin Durant, funnily enough, tearing his Achilles, and then Klay Thompson tearing his ACL. So like I think just being in the conversation, and we know that Masai wants to just be there, and he's actually benefited before from pushing his chips in, just hoping it works, because it has just worked just a couple of years ago. So I think if I'm Toronto, and then someone has said to me, probably Brooklyn, saying, hey, your offer of Siakam, Gary Trent, and other stuff is better than everything else. Do you want to shake hands on this? I would 100% do that. Because I think even if you don't do that deal, and you say it like, yeah, Pascal Siakam might not be the best player on this team 2 years from now, and Pascal Siakam might not be an All-NBA third-team player. We love the fact that Scotty Barnes is such a question mark and so open-ended. But you can also, if you can keep that and get Kevin Durant while also having Fred VanVleet there, who's very good, I say go for it. Because as soon as you bring in Kevin Durant as well, you might have some questions about the rest of this roster. But then all of a sudden you've got Kevin Durant, you're a title contender, you're in the Lefton Conference, which is easier to get out of. There's going to be plenty of veterans, right? There's going to be plenty of veterans just streaming in your way as well that are looking for a ring.
Yeah, but I guess the conversation then though becomes going back to like, let's say that you've got 2 years of Durant at an elite level. Like if it doesn't happen in those 2 years, then you're not done, but you're asset poor and you've got potentially an albatross contract or you move him but for not heaps of value. So the more conservative, dare I say, cautious side is like Siakam is like 27, Anunoby is like 25, Van Vliet would be like 26, Trent would be 25, and Barnes would be 20. So if you keep that crew together and Barnes and Anunoby continue to improve, Barnes becomes an All-NBA type player, and you maybe add some reserves that aren't centers, making $8+ million a year, then you could have a 5-year window. And it's like, well, what are your... Is it better to have a 20% chance to win a title or a 15% chance to win a title for 2 straight years, or a 10% chance to win a title for 5 straight years?
I'm just not as high on the Raptors long term as you.
Yeah, well, I don't even know that I'm super high on it. I'm just very trepidatious about trading
so much for
something that's
a
already
year and a half
good and
KD.
getting better for something that would undoubtedly make you better in the short term, but like how short that term is incredibly unknown.
Cool. Well, speaking of already good and getting better, the next piece of news here is a trade between KD and the Golden State Warriors. I'll say that again, good and getting better, is, quote, highly unlikely, unquote, according to Marcus Thompson of The Athletic. There were talks and there were reports, and NBA Twitter went a little bit crazy when they said, oh my God, they're going to get KD again. And I actually wasn't in love with the idea of that. I would have loved it for the light years aspect of it and just the fact that KD has come back to us. But I wouldn't love it as an on-call fit, because as soon as you ask yourself, like, what do we have to give up? Has to start with Wiggins, and you're like, man, how fucked is it that you might actually just say no with Wiggins, because then obviously you're going to have to throw some sweet...
You would
do it straight up.
You would say yes.
But the sweeteners on top of that are just, unpalatable.
So apparently the asking price that's been mentioned in this report from Marcus Thompson is Wiggins, Poole, Kuminga, Moody, and Big Jim.
That wasn't the actual asking price. It was Wiggins plus then 2 of the rookies. 2 of the young guys.
Fucking do it.
Really?
Done. Say less. Not Poole.
Okay.
Not Poole. But take your pick of the other 3. Take 2 of Kuminga, Moody, and Big Jim, and we'll call it a day. Done.
Any picks? Because if there's picks, that's so expensive. Well, Kuminga's really good.
Not yet. You average 8 points a game.
Yeah, really good 8 points.
Really,
defended in the Western Conference
Really
Finals.
good 8 points. I fully agree, but Kevin Durant.
Yeah, but where was this Dante 5 seconds ago when we're talking about the Raptors?
Well, the thing with that though is that Golden State right now are way better than the Raptors. So the Raptors adding KD to give themselves a 15% chance of winning the title. Golden State just won the title. If you add KD, you'll win the title again. Like that's essentially the calculus, that instead of being a contender for those 2 years that KD is still elite, you will be the contender. You will be the best team in the league. The last time we saw these 4 guys play together, it was literally unstoppable. No, the only thing that could stop it is an
ruptured
ACL
Achilles.
and a popped Achilles. So,
and I think we win that if Clay stays healthy. But that's completely
well. I think Poole is easily the best of those young assets. Kuminga, maybe he ends up being better than Poole, but right now Poole is substantially better than Kuminga. Wiggins is a great player at the moment.
Trevor Ariza on steroids.
Yeah, but at the same time, like, I don't want to fall into the stream of, like, Andrew Wiggins is the best two-way player in the league, which you kind of been hearing, because he's done
Please come with me.
He's done it for a year
and a half,
and he's not someone who's ever had like the offensive skill set that you'd love from like an amazing role player. If the mid-ranges start to come back or the three-point shooting drops off.
That's the thing. That was what was so kind of beautiful about this little run, is because the mid-ranges did come back. Because like as soon as we were deep in the playoffs, and obviously Steph Curry's shots get harder, Klay Thompson somehow looks for harder shots. Like, yeah, everything got harder for this team. And Andrew Wiggins with like sort of the bailout snake dribble mid-ranges. Yeah. This is a different conversation. But it actually came in handy.
It did come in handy, but he's not the sort of operator where I'm like, yeah, rely on that. Andrew, we want you to take 5 of those a game.
But as long as there's a guy called Stephen Curry on the court, he's not going to have to do that.
I just think that taking the best team in the league and then adding KD, the calculus is different than taking the 12th best team in the league and adding KD.
One of them's much more fun to watch them rise.
Can
I say, if you thought people got angry at KD for joining 73 win Warriors, he will stamp himself forever as the beta superstar. Yeah, which is probably why he hasn't put down this team as one of his destinations.
Yeah, I would do it. You're kind of punting on the whole like Spurs-esque plan that the Warriors have in place, where we're going to win now and we're going to develop our young guys and then we're going to win later. But if you essentially guarantee one more ring, then do it, because what's the future of a Poole, Kuminga, Moody, and Big Jim with Wiggins' team?
You just
it might not be
keep Dante happy, man. Do you remember 2 months ago when we had this chat and I said, look, Dante, if we win the title, your argument's invalid. We won the title, and you were saying should have traded for Beal, should have traded for Siakam, right? And we won.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the end of the conversation.
And I'm trying to help you.
You can't come back and restart the argument 2 months later.
I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to say that they don't have value or they're not right for the team right now, because clearly they just fucking won the title with these players playing whatever roles they were playing. It worked. What I'm saying is
only getting better.
What I'm saying is the uncertainty of that transition is I don't think, compared to the certainty of having KD.
Uncertainty of that transition.
Okay, well, hypothetically, Jordan Poole is not like an all NBA level player.
Yeah.
Wiggins has
all-star starter.
Yeah, okay. Wiggins is not an all NBA level player.
Yeah.
Kuminga doesn't get there. Moody is not going to get there regardless. I think that's quite obvious, and neither is Big Jim. Like, those are, like, it looks good on paper. They all look good on the court, but there's absolutely nothing that says that this is going to go the way that the Spurs wanted it to, because the way that the Spurs did it is they just fucking got Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
If none of these guys turn into an all NBA level player, then the transition from like old to young will just mean going from a 1 seed to a 5 seed, versus having KD in and just saying, let's pick up 2 more chips.
The Warriors are currently title favourites to win next season, and we haven't made the KD trade.
I'm not saying that the Warriors aren't good, or that this iteration of the Warriors team isn't good. I'm saying this is an opportunity to like make it like fucking unassailable.
Okay. Well, anyway, it's highly unlikely, so it's not going to happen.
Hey, don't take it personally.
The deep two. God, that's a mouthful. Anyways, I'm Marco, co-host of the Hey, Daniel Gafford, what's the name of our podcast?
The JVG NBA Tribute Show.
Wow, I can't believe it's that easy. Thanks, Gaff. You probably know us as 2 members of the 4-Man Weave plus Marco, but we know you as our next listener.
Well said, Lucas. I gotta ask, how do we differ from the Pack of Basketball podcasts?
It's a great question, Marco. You see, on our basketball podcast, we have 2 male co-hosts.
Wow, truly groundbreaking. After this episode, stay on your favourite podcasting app and give us a spin.
Let's move on to the 2 frontrunners, which are obviously the Miami Heat and your Phoenix Suns. A report coming from Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN says that the Nets are in, quote, consistent contact, unquote, with both of these teams. These teams obviously are going to be more than comfortable to throw in their best offers, knowing that KD wants to be there. Not that he's going to re-sign or anything, because he's got 4 years remaining on his contract. Both teams can offer 4+ future first-round picks. Now, I think those picks are quite questionable as to how good/bad they will be, because obviously both of you guys have very aging cores. But how do you feel?
Devin Booker's 26.
how do you feel? Says Cam Johnson. How do you feel about your odds being able to your ability to outbid Miami in the KD sweepstakes?
Oh, we can definitely outbid Miami, because Miami can't offer Bam because of the
designated rookie,
unless Ben Simmons goes the other way, which would be monstrous. And they won't offer Butler. So there's nothing really to go there, because you're looking.
Can I just say that the offer that we're talking about is Tyler Hero, Kyle Lowry / Duncan Robinson. I think the best offer has Kyle Lowry in it. So Tyler Hero, Kyle Lowry, Gabe Vincent, and then 4 future picks, being 2 swaps and 2 unprotected.
Terrible.
Compared to your offer, which is
Ayton /+ Bridges. Which right there.
The fuck's a /+?
No, well, I don't.
Hey, and let me just remember BODMAS.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to include Bridges in a trade. But if that's the trade plus picks, then it's already way better than.
It is kind of strange that Brooklyn don't want Aiden, because if they are willing to take back any, let's say, youngish / mid-20s player, if they're willing to take back a Mikal Bridges. Why aren't they willing to take back DeAndre Ayton? Even if you hate him, he's still a dude who has value. Maybe he doesn't have the greatest value when he's getting paid $30 million a year. But he's still a young dude who's going to get 20 and 10 or 18 and 9.
Well, his absolute basement is a young dude who's going to get 20 and 10. He right now playing for the Suns, and it might be different if he has a different role offensively in a different system. But right now, playing for the Suns, when he plays 30+ minutes, which he doesn't always, he is a walking 20 and 10. He's one of the premier lob finishers in the game. He's a great screener. He does have pretty good touch on his mid-ranges, and he's a good defensive center. Of the starting centers in the league, he's probably one of the 10 best. Which is not something that I thought I'd say 2 or 3 years ago. And then the value comes from the fact that he does have these skills that he's been asked to kind of put on the shelf to focus more of the Suns' offense through Paul and Booker, which we kind of saw those skills when he was really, really young, his first 2 years in the league. It didn't always go well, but partially because he was 19 and 20.
And playing with Elliot Cobra.
Exactly. The hope would be that if you're talking from a value play, that those skills are latent and can be tapped into again, or that they've developed, and alongside his new appreciation for his role and for doing the little things. You could be looking at an All-NBA center. You really could, which if the center position, obviously, you want to be really sure about something before you're handing out $30 million plus. But if you're paying $30 million plus for a 24-year-old All-NBA player, then go for it. They clearly just don't have that evaluation on him if they don't want him.
Definitely. So what's the best deal that you would? What's the deal that you think outbids Miami that doesn't include DeAndre Ayton?
Well, it would be Bridges, Johnson, which would take you to 25 mil. So you'd need to
say Saric or something.
Yeah, you need to throw in Saric or Crowder. We'd probably just say Saric, and then picks.
And then they'll say Crowder, and then you'll do picks.
Yeah, well, we want to move Crowder anyway, but it's just that we can't give up our 3 starting wings.
Yeah. I don't know why you want to move Jay Crowder. Why is that?
Because he's on $9 million a year, and his play has kind of slipped a little bit, and less Crowder minutes means more Cam Johnson minutes. And it also means more room for Cam Johnson.
Yeah.
And by that I mean he's extension eligible and he'll be a restricted free agent next season.
I'm trying to play it out on a whiteboard.
Yeah.
All right. So but if you had to put some odds on this, a percentage odds, what are the effing odds that the Phoenix Suns employ one Kevin Durant, by training camp? What would you say?
I'd say 25%.
is that higher than every other team?
Yeah.
Is that higher than the Brooklyn Nets just keeping him?
Yeah. I think there'd be a few that are like a 15 or a 20% chance.
Mm.
And then...
Yeah, just outliers.
Yeah.
I agree. I think you guys are the most likely. But, the news coming out again from that same Woj report saying that the Nets, who it has seemed like they are a little bit rushed in this situation. The Nets have come out and said, like, look, we are happy to take this into training camp. And look, if KD really wants to request a trade with 4 years left on his deal, he wants to do it, I'm sure, as gracefully as possible. But if the Nets, as we know, Joe Tsai is extremely pissed off with this whole situation, if the Nets are just like, nah, we want you to make this as ugly as James Harden made the Houston situation just to ruin your image. Like, they can be spiteful if they're going to lose 100% of the time.
You get the sense that they would be more accommodating to Durant, who...
was the guy who came.
Yeah, but also he's like the one who's least implicated in the fallout of all of this.
Yeah.
Of the big three. Like, you could imagine, I don't know what personal characteristics Sean Marks and Joe Tsai have, but you could imagine that the reasonable person might want to be spiteful towards Kyrie and just fucking send him to Orlando. It's unfortunate that the NBA is so much different than it was like 10 or 15 years ago, where that would be the case, where like a bad team in the pre-tanking era would be like, whoa, a chance to get Kyrie, let's do it. Let's fucking go all in. And Orlando would be like, we'll give you John Isaac, we'll give you like fucking
Cole Anthony,
we'll give you, who was their guard from last year that they picked? Jalen
Suggs.
They're like, let's do it, you know. Unfortunately, those kind of avenues don't exist anymore. But I think that Durant is like the least implicated, and it's reasonable to expect that like they would try and facilitate his wishes to some extent. That also depends on, you know, like Durant's kind of behaviour during...
Which apparently has gone dark on both other teams who he's trying to get recruited by and the front office altogether.
Yeah, well...
I mean, it's probably a pretty rough time.
Yeah, it would be. But anyway, these guys get paid like...
Next piece of news, Bradley Beal, who obviously has signed a 5-year, $251 million deal. Is that the richest deal in the whole entire league at the moment?
Nah, Jokic's was.
True, because they signed at the same time, and Jokic is better. So obviously he signed his huge deal, but it is
that he spent like the last 2 years trying to get.
It has just recently come out from Bobby Marks of ESPN that Bradley Beal and his agency have negotiated a no trade clause into that deal. Bradley Beal is now only the 10th player in the history of the NBA to ever receive a no trade clause, and he's the only active player in the whole entire NBA with one outside of the qualifying offer dudes like Bruce Brown last year and so on. Steph Curry doesn't have a no trade clause. LeBron James doesn't have a no trade clause. Kevin Durant obviously doesn't have a no trade clause. But Bradley Beal is able to put one into his deal to make him harder to trade if, you know, by the teeny chance he is unhappy with Washington after telling everyone he loves Washington and wants to be the one team guy. He's now locked himself up here. What did you think when you saw this?
Can I tell you the other 9 players?
Can I guess them?
Yeah.
Carmelo Anthony?
Yep.
Dwight Howard?
No.
I just realised I only know Melo. Is there some like mid-2000s Antoine Jamison sort of dude?
Nah, they're all like...
They're all very recent.
For the majority of them have played in the 2000s.
Man, Jerron Williams?
No.
Okay, I'm out.
All right, LeBron.
Yeah.
Kevin Garnett.
Yeah.
Melo, tick for you. Kobe. Dirk Nowitzki. Dwayne Wade. Tim Duncan. David Robinson. John Stockton. And Bradley Beal.
All Hall of Fame.
We talked briefly off air before we started this, and I said then, and in the last 35 minutes, nothing has changed my mind. This has got to be the stupidest decision I can remember in the NBA, because the Beal playbook for the last 2 to 3 seasons has been make noises about being unhappy, make noises about potentially wanting to leave via trade or free agency, then make noises about I might not even accept the supermax. if they offer it to me, maybe I'll just take a 4-year max from another team when I hit free agency.
But then look at his offers at the trade deadline and get hand surgery.
Yeah, well,
Because he didn't love him.
It just seems like the next logical step will be that the Wizards won't be as good as he's demanding they be when he says, I want to compete for a title. Like, you'd assume he's not an idiot and he doesn't think that he's going to win in the next 2 years alongside Rui and Denny. So, if that's the case and the Wizards aren't that good, they just not only gave him the bag, from which he's secured that simply because he would get 10 million extra a season than if he just went in free agency to another team. He was clearly, from the moment he signed that, I think that it's more likely that he requests a trade in the next 2 seasons than not. So giving a player like that a max is like the supermax, $50 million a year for someone who was like not that good last season anyway. Super risky. And then adding the no trade clause, like, I mean, like, if he says I want to leave and he sits out, you're A, paying him $50 million to do so, and B, your range of trade partners is essentially limited to wherever he wants to go, which is 5 teams. So you can't even cash in on the asset hole. You just have to essentially take back whatever salary you can.
Yep.
I think it's an absolute fucking disaster.
Even if he averages 40 points per game and he's like one of the greatest scorers of all time since like Wilt Chamberlain, if he gets put onto the trade market and Sacramento come calling and say like, oh, we really just need this guy who's such a good scorer, here's like our next 50 drafts, but he doesn't want to go there, they're just done. And it just limits all leverage from this front office if they ever want to trade him. Like he will just... It's a no trade clause. He'll just say no, and the front office has no leverage. They literally just have to bend to his wishes. And then if he says, let's say next year he says, I want to go to Miami and Miami only, Miami's not going to offer, let's say they haven't traded for KD, Miami's not going to offer this massive package that would have gotten KD. They're going to offer literally just matching salary, just enough to get the deal done. And if Washington's like, no, we actually want at least 1 first-round pick, Miami's going to be like, no, well, just keep paying him $50 million for the next 5 years. Yeah,
you really have drastically shrunk the pool from which you can sample. He's been All-NBA once. So to be giving...
Is that the COVID year? When he averaged 30 points?
It was. Yes, it was. He averaged 31. He's got 2 seasons averaging more than 30, which is like unreal. He's obviously one of the best scorers in the game. Definitely one of the 2 best, probably him and Trey, like guard scorers in the league, which is a wonderful skill to have. A tremendous value player, but the argument is there that he hasn't been able to do that on a winning team. And the Wizards are they rolling back essentially the same team?
Well, they got no choice because now they just gave their best player an extension.
So what's going to happen? He had a down year last year when he did play. He only played half of last season. So giving a 28-year-old who's made 1 All-NBA team selection $50 million a year in and of itself is it's a big risk.
Pascal Siakam has more All-NBA teams.
Yeah. I just think that it's an absolutely diabolical decision to, and you put yourself in the negotiating room as well. Like, obviously his agent has asked for this. Like, the answer should be no. We're paying you $50 million a year for the next 5 years. Like, that's it.
I actually thought he was going to sign for less than this. I thought he was going to get give a tiny pay cut. I just didn't think the front office would roll over just so easily.
Yeah.
I reckon Bradley Beal walked into that room and the front office were all just turtles laying on their backs before he's even opened the door.
And he has made noises in the last year about really loving it in Washington and he wants to build a contender here and said the right things, but I view that more as a
good PR team.
Yeah, as a good PR team and also like a ploy to kind of get the money.
Yeah.
Now he's got the money. If things aren't working out, he's going to be looking at the clock saying, I've been in the NBA for 10 years. I've got 4, maybe 5 good seasons left in me. I got to get a chip. He's got the bag. He's got the ability to choose his destination. Like, now, because of the moves, because of the decisions the front office has made, the world truly is his oyster. And people whose world is an oyster tend to do big grand things because they can, and they've fully just given him license to do whatever he wants. I think that the if you set the over under at 24 months before this all blows up and the Wizards are left reeling, I would smash the under. Not that we do much gambling on this podcast,
but we do love the over under pod. Next piece of free agency news is that Thomas Bryant has signed a minimum deal with the LA Lakers, and I've written here promised the starting spot, but he was actually promised a chance to get the starting spot. It looks like it's coming from Chris Haynes of Yahoo Sports. It looks like Anthony Davis is just never going to play the 5. So if you had to pick a center to play next to Anthony Davis, pick the one that in theory can shoot threes, as opposed to Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. I think this is a fine, make good. Hopefully Thomas Bryant can recoup some of his value because he tore his ACL last season. Hopefully he can recoup some value, and not much to say here. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I think that the theory is fantastic that like he is a good fit next to AD, because when he has been healthy over the last 2 or 3 seasons, he's flashed like some really, really promising offensive game. He can shoot threes. He's shot. He's got 2 seasons shooting above 40% on like not insignificant volume. Both of those were injury shortened, and it remains to be seen how well he'll be able to actually like stay on the court. And last season when he played, he didn't look very good, and lost his spot in Washington to the patron saint of the JVG NBA tribute show, Big Dan Dan, and certain things like that. But it's a good flyer. I mean, he's awful defensively.
But next to Anthony Davis should be better.
Yeah, but if he's next to Anthony Davis, it just kind of like becomes again like, well, one of them has to be near.
But you'd rather put him next to Anthony Davis than like Ryan Anderson.
No, of course, absolutely.
He's not going to be bad.
Well, he might be, but he won't be as bad.
Yeah.
I think it's a good flyer from the Lakers, and I think that like this addition, signing Lonnie Walker, are 2 like moves that could really kind of pay off in a big way. Whereas last year, out of the guys that they added non-Westbrook division through free agency, Malik Monk was really the only one who you looked at and said that's a good signing. Like Malik Monk could be pretty good on this team.
It was like Wayne Ellington, Avery Bradley.
Yeah, but guys who were just over the hill. Did they add Bazemore? Or am I imagining things?
Oh, was that?
Bazemore is just perennially added to every old team. He's a perennial ring chaser. But there were signings where you're like, okay, if this goes as well as it could, it's not going to go that well. Whereas Thomas Bryant, like
at least high.
Thomas Bryant was kind of flashing like top 10 offensive center potential a couple of years ago. Lonnie Walker is the sort of like
he was drafted with the allure of good shooting guard.
Yeah. Well,
it's been 4 years.
He's also like I kind of have a bit of a soft spot for him because he's athletic. He can shoot a little bit. Like he's streaky as fuck, but he's a guy who can probably fill some of what Malik Monk gave them last year, and they got him for cheap. And he's just another like young guy who can run and jump versus a team last season that was all old guys and injured guys who couldn't. So I think that the Lakers are kind of maybe learning from mistakes of.
The Lakers do have a really good scouting department. They just usually trade away the picks before they can actually pick anyone. Lonnie Walker, clutch client.
Yeah.
Which, just has me a little bit uneasy, even though I do want the best for him, because friend of the pod, Jackson, has a Lonnie Walker jersey, and I'd love to see that go up in value.
Is Taylor Horton-Tucker now even more expendable / untradeable on his $10 million a year? He's now Taylor Horton-Tucker.
Not to answer. I don't want to talk about Taylor Horton-Tucker.
On this segment's edition of mismanagement by a front office, Taylor Horton-Tucker has a player option for next season. So he's essentially an expiring, which means even if he plays well this season and recovers all of his value, he's an expiring. He's dropped out.
Yeah. But of course, he'll want to stay to be with his agent friend. Should we talk about Summer League?
Yeah, let's have some Chet Chat.
So I was actually going to say that. Fuck. So at the moment,
you stole one of my lines last week. So
what did I steal? Something good.
You know what it was? No, it was 2 words, but it was before reading out the Gobert haul. I'd written in the doc. Okay, so. And then an ellipsis which signified a deep breath, and then I was going to do a bit of a gag and like will run through it and be out of breath by the end of it.
Well, let's not Niece Kylie take that out.
The listeners are tearing up thinking about the laughs from last week that they missed.
So we actually kind of missed time this, and by that I mean we just recorded like usual. But I thought the 2K23 Las Vegas Summer League had actually started by today, but it actually starts tomorrow because time zones and all that. So the only sample size we've got to go off are the California Classic and the Salt Lake City something Summer League. So this is they're the bad summer leagues, but they're also, instead of in past years they've been very bad summer leagues with just like absolute bin talent running out there, but this year it's actually gotten a little bit better. Like these summer leagues actually had full rosters, like no Big Jim, no Kuminga, but you know these rosters were pretty hefty. Also, can I say California Classic, Lakers, Warriors, Sacramento, Miami Heat. Just don't understand that. So let's talk about Chet Holmgren.
I think it's in California,
but should have Californian teams, as are all of them except for Miami. But I guess Miami just, I imagine them as the friends from far away who, like, they mean really well. They really want to develop their young talent, but their friends just don't really get along as well when it comes to developing young talent, so they don't have, like, a league for themselves.
Yeah, they don't have
There's no Miami show out.
League for themselves.
So Chet Holmgren, who I'm sure we'll start with the Chet Chat. So, yeah 23 points in
that's funny. Did you come up with that yourself?
Yeah. Okay, so he came up, he started off his summer league beautifully with 23 points in not many minutes at all. He looked graceful out there. I actually really liked the way he was handling the ball because you see all these lanky skinny dudes, and maybe we're just sort of clouded by the Pokuševski sort of idea of it, but he looked really smooth whenever he got the ball. There was that one where it was an offensive rebound to Josh Giddey, then he caught it and just had a couple of dribbles, and then obviously he's tall enough to dunk from anywhere. So it's just like beautiful. Took some really difficult shots off the dribble, like KD-esque, which again the Bluebird was going crazy. But then he followed that up against the Memphis Grizzlies today, and going against the two fat dudes, what are their names?
Kenny Lofton.
Yeah, and then there's another one.
I don't know.
Kenneth Loftus Jr. Loftus Cheek. And obviously, like, this is going to be Chet's major issue, like as it was for guys like him in Rudy Gobert and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Chet Holmgren is going to struggle against size and strength, and Lofton Jr. just fucking bullied him. And it's not even like, okay, this is Zach Randolph, like, you're in the NBA, like, welcome to your NBA moment. It's like, no, this is your welcome to your Salt Lake Summer League, 2K23, Las Vegas Summer League, with the welcome to your Summer League moment. And that'll just get better, but I'm not going to be dissuaded by him just getting overpowered when he's 20 years old, and this is the skinniest we're ever going to see him. Well, do you agree with me on that one?
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, there's no cause for concern because the thing that he's doing badly is the thing that everyone knows he's going to do badly, including his team.
And his good bits look better.
No one's expecting him to like match up against a 300-pound guy and like take it in the chest and like repel him.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about that at all. But I think watching him play offensively kind of has had me thinking about like what he looks like against proper NBA defenders, but also schemes, because I mentioned I think it was last week or the week before, like thinking about how Kristaps Porzingis's career arc has developed, particularly his offensive role, and he obviously doesn't have the handle that Chet does. You're right, that Chet looks really smooth, particularly in transition. But against a set D, the treatment for big skinny guys, Porzingis, Gobert, has been switching a wing-sized defender onto him. You can't do that on Durant because Durant's just going to pull up from the mid-range and score. Durant also has a good enough handle to get all the way to the rim. That's Kevin Durant, though, who's like the all-time like best 7-footer who's skinny. Like he's like the best, of that body type to ever do it. So assuming that Chet doesn't become Kevin Durant, the three options that he'll have, like when a team switches a smaller player onto him, is to shoot over the top. He'll need to be a really good shooter, so encouraging that he's taking shots off the dribble already for that. He can post up and try and like body someone in. That's obviously not going to happen within the next 2 to 3 years, probably ever. or he can take them off the dribble and try and get past them. Now, historically, you don't see big guys taking little guys off the dribble. So what I'm really interested is to see how that handle looks in the half court, because a few of his pull-ups and a few of his really nice, like, smooth, fluid-looking moves were in transition, semi-transition, like, lots of space. Like, it really wasn't contested on the handle. So I want to see, through the rest of Summer League, can he, like, catch the ball and break someone down? Can he get all the way to the rim from the three-point line, like, off of his own dribble? Or is he not going to be that sort of player? Because I think that will dictate his offensive skill set. He also looked really good as a help defender in the first game. Like,
Obviously the 6 blocks setting a Summer League record.
But even just like watching the highlights, he clearly has really good instincts. Like he knows, a few times he knows exactly when to rotate over, and he came over with some double-handed swats. Like he clearly reads the game for that role very well already, which is like, you know, huge, because like, you know, impacting the game the way he can with his length is going to be really important, because he is going to come up against guys like Kenneth Loftus-Cheek who are just going to bully him. So he needs to be able to make an impact defensively by like swatting shots and playing really good help D, because there will be moments when he gets exposed.
A couple of other OKC notes. Josh Giddey, obviously he's the...
Is he Australian?
Obviously he's the veteran here, being a second-year player, but I rarely actually like see this and actually recognise it, because when you're watching the NBA or any professional league, like, everyone knows what's going on, but Josh Giddey, like, just watching him play against bad players, he is so in control of what he's doing, and he knows exactly where the pass is going in.
That's what they teach you at St. Kevin's.
He had a couple of beautiful passes there.
There's one in particular,
just a fingernail over to the corner. Another note, Osman Zheng was not even getting thought about when he was behind the 3-point line. Like, not even, the defense was just 5-on-4. And then Jalen Williams, I can't tell you which one, but it was the cool looking one. He can jump very high. And he had a couple of like 2-footed dunks where he just got up and it was just like, you know, one step into 2 feet. I think he's like 6'5", 6'6", like he's a wing-sized dude. And, you know, he's already up there.
The one that they took in the second round or the first round?
I couldn't tell you. But his name's Jalen Williams, and he is a very, very nice dunker. Like, one of those dudes where as soon as he dunks it, it makes like a sort of popping sound on the ring, because he just slams it that hard. And like, yeah, you know, it's in Salt Lake City. There's like 5 people watching outside of GMs and scouts, but he was getting very loud, and Josh Giddey was just like sort of laughing because this dude's like putting 110% into Salt Lake City. He's already drafted, like he's got a roster spot. But yeah, OKC looking good. They're my favourite to win the 2K23 Las Vegas Summer League. What about yourself? Yep, good. Keegan Murray, speaking of looking comfortable, looking like they know what they're doing and just being in the right place, good instincts. Again, this isn't like, holy crap, this dude's going to win Rookie of the Year. This dude's playing against bad players, and you expect to see them play very well. So very encouraging. I think we can say very much similar things as we did in the Chet Chat. But the Keegan conversation, he's definitely a good NBA player so far. He's looking that way.
Yeah, well, like, you want to just see that they can step into like a sub NBA level of competition and like look good. And what did he do in his first game? Like 26 points in 28 minutes or something.
Something like 4 or 5 threes, and then the rest of his team, he was like 4 or 5 out of 7. The rest of his team was 0 of 15.
Yeah, so he looks good, which is like, yeah, not a high bar to clear, but the fact that he is clearing it comfortably is extremely encouraging, especially because it feels like this is a pick with a lot riding on it, because he was considered a reach, and because...
Well, can I just say, I thought it was a reach too, but then I was listening to the Game Theory pod with Sam Vecini. And
noted Essendon fan and Melbourne resident Sam Vecini.
Coming from America, he said that with the front office members he spoke to, from, because heaps of people try and trade up and pick Jaden Ivey, But the Pacers and the Spurs had discussions with the Kings to trade up, and they said if we got that 4th pick, there is a 100% chance we would be taking Keegan Murray as well. So I feel a little bit better about the pick because obviously the Kings have a history, especially with their owner, just saying, hey, this is our dude, pick him no matter what, I don't care, even if he's supposed to go 7. But I feel a little bit better knowing that they're not alone on this Marvin Bagley Island.
Yeah, but I guess
By the way, I meant instead of a Keegan Murray Island.
Yeah. Wait, I don't get it. What's a joke?
No joke.
Okay.
I'm just clarifying.
Yeah, no, I understood.
Call me butter.
Now I've lost my train of thought.
Keegan Murray wasn't much of a reach.
Well, the conventional wisdom is that Jaden Ivey is going to be boom or bust. If he doesn't, hit his ceiling, like it's likely that he'll maybe kind of be like maybe more of a Moutier type than like not even Ja Morant. I mean, like he's probably more likely to be a Moutier than he is a Brogdon. He's not just going to be that rock solid starter who a couple of years might be in the All-Star conversation, but like mostly not really that good. He's probably going to be really good or really bad. And the thing with Keegan Murray is that he's probably going to be good.
Just is he going to be great?
Is he going to be great? Is he going to be as great as his team needs? Is he going to be, better than like a really good role player, which is a reach at the 4th pick? Now, obviously, he hasn't even played a fucking game yet. We're talking about Summer League, so these conversations are all kind of moot. But the Kings taking a guy who might have been perceived around the league as a bit more of a role player, number 4, than taking
a high ceiling
guy. If one of the high ceiling guys that they skip on like pops, and in 2 years' time it's the Kings still rattling around with Fox and Sabonis and like a collection of role players, it's going to be really sad.
But you don't get it. They have to make the playoffs next season.
Who's their coach now? I fully don't even fucking know.
Who is the Warriors' assistant? Mike Brown.
Mike Brown.
Yeah. Mike Brown, who at the moment has a defensive reputation after being the defensive coordinator for the Warriors.
Yeah, when his center is Sabonis, we'll see.
Over under 1.5 weeks when he loses that reputation.
Oh, we'll hit the under just for a laugh. There was a really good segment on one of the latest the end of season episodes of NBA Desktop. That's not what it's called anymore. It's called All Caps NBA. Where Jason Concepcion and co were watching one of Mike Brown's introductory press conferences.
Yeah.
And there was a bit where they were like, "Are you happy to come to Sacramento?" And he was like when I got offered the job, I asked a lot of my family and friends who live in the area, like, what's the place like? And I can tell you honestly that nobody said anything bad about the place. And they were like, yep, that's a pretty weird way of putting it. When you could have just said, and everyone raved about the place. The bar to clear is that no one has said anything bad about the Sacramento area.
He's a bit of a meme. Like he speaks a little bit weird. He looks a little bit funny. And
he does look a little bit funny.
Draymond used to always make fun of him because he used to get really invested in defense and start yelling and stuff. And Draymond would just be like, "Calm down, man. Like you've literally got steam coming out of your ears." Like he's a bit of a meme. I said it last week. I'll say it again. I'm actually going to watch the Kings, and I think I'm going to enjoy it. I'm not going to say they're going to make the playoffs, but I'm going to enjoy it.
Let's get Nice Kylie to clip that, and I'll play it back to you in like. I'll play it back to you this year. I'll play it back to you in December, and we'll see how many Kings games you've watched.
Just to wrap up, we'll talk about the aforementioned Kenny Lofton Jr., who I saw on Twitter described as Grant Williams if Grant Williams ate Grant Williams. Really fucking cool just to see him overpower fucking everybody, and he hit a step back 3, and he hit a 3 over Chet. Pretty cool.
If you want proof of the anti-Zion media agenda, where's the Kenny Lofton fat conversation? Where is it? Or is it so obvious that he's really fat that there's no one needs to have the conversation because it's just a given?
But let's wrap things up because that's a terrible way to end things.
Well, hopefully next time we chat, we'll be running a Kevin Durant segment off the top again. But there's actually been a trade, and hopefully Mikal Bridges is still on the Suns.
Yeah, I reckon not. Anyway, Dante, I'll speak to you next week. If you look for PointsBet's stock exchange listing, you'll find a bucket of jargon and doublespeak as they're considered a, quote, wagering services operator, unquote. That's a corporate stretch for the colloquial friendly Brogan or, hey, look, it's Chris Bosh kind of image they're sending off with their targeted advertising. I don't know about you, but take me back to the days when former pro sports players signed brand deals with hair loss clinics or Fujitsu aircons, not, quote, wagering service providers.
If you're scrolling through your Facebook feed and you come across the two of our faces morphed into one, would that make you listen to our podcast more? I mean, if it does, let us know and we'll start doing it. But when I see a few NBA players' faces morphed into one, it doesn't make me want to pull out my wallet and donate some money to my local wagering services provider.
The worst part is we're coming to accept it. Wagering service provider ads are so ingrained in our sports, and the way sports is delivered to us, it's almost impossible to avoid. 3/4 of Australian children aged between 8 and 16 years who watch sport think that betting on sport is normal and can name one or more sport betting companies. When I was in school, I was struggling to remember Pokemon names, and I'd be furious if I knew that brain power was being used to put towards wagering service providers and not them.
The wagering service providers know exactly who to target. It's not okay to let them ingrain themselves in young Australians' minds. It's not okay to target people in the middle of a pandemic, and it's not okay for gambling companies to wield so much influence in the world of sports. To help kick gambling out of sport, use your voice and sign the petition at www.endgamblingads.org.au/petition.